So thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm going to start out by breaking some hearts. I'm going to let you in on a secret that Indiana Jones is dead. Now, I know you see me standing here. I'm ruggedly handsome. I look like I could fight Nazis with a whip. But archaeology has changed and is changing all the time. And the research that I'm doing and that my research group are doing are taking advantage of this change to ask fundamentally new questions of the archaeological record. So who here has actually worked on or been at an archaeological excavation? Hands up. Good, you all have to come along and see how it works. But the thing you would find, the thing you probably found, is that when you're in that excavation, you're digging incredibly slowly, you're getting lots of information about one particular place, but it's really hard to get outside of that tiny area and understand the archaeology more broadly. So this was one of my students in an excavation in northwest Queensland, and it took us about 3 months to get down to this point. So it's a lot of time to find out just about that one spot. But if we use new scientific techniques, we can look much more broadly across the landscape. So we can all of a sudden see where the archaeology is spread on a much bigger area. And we do this using techniques from the earth sciences. So geophysics, geochemistry, sedimentology, 3D modelling, new innovative ways to understand archaeological science. So let's start with a little thought experiment. If you were tasked with putting one by 1 metre excavation anywhere in Adelaide to understand everything about the city, where would you put it? Does anyone want to jump in? Yeah. Rubbish dump? Rubbish dump's a great answer. But people often say rubbish dump, they want to do it on North Terrace, they put it somewhere out in the suburbs, and each of those places without context will give us a completely different idea of what's happening in Adelaide. I mean, if you went through my rubbish, you'd see I'm a person of very refined taste, eats very well, but you could go next door and get a completely different idea. So the only way to look at the archaeological record in a more holistic way is to find a way to image underground. And so I use geophysical techniques, satellite techniques, aerial techniques that can see down into the subsurface and give us information about how the archaeological record is spread over a much broader area. And if we do this, we still probably need to dig, but we can dig at the places where we know there's a specific question to be answered rather than just digging blindly. On the right of the slide here, you can see a classical Greek city in the Peloponnese, and the straight lines that you can see in that data are the ancient streetscape of that city. So it's buried beneath an agricultural field. We have no idea what was there, and by using these geophysical techniques, which maybe take a day or two in the field, we can suddenly unwrap all of that wonderful archaeological potential. And then if we do find those sites, we need to look at the archaeological material in different ways. So this is what a Neanderthal looks like, both on the stage and on the slide. And if you think about the type of material that comes out of archaeological excavations, things like stone artifacts, other material culture items, bones, those things are great at giving us information about specific parts of how people and our ancestors behaved. But what they don't do is tell us about a whole bunch of other stuff that just doesn't show up in archaeological science. And so what I and my students have been doing is analysing the chemistry of teeth and bone from archaeological science. You can see on the image on the bottom left a slice through a Neanderthal tooth, and we're mapping the chemistry of that tooth in really high resolution. And this can give us information about how diets are changing, about how these ancestors are moving around the landscape. And in this case, and hence the baby Neanderthal, the maternal behaviour of our ancestors. So how long they were breastfeeding their children for, and whether they breastfed in one continuous block or they returned to breastfeeding over time in response perhaps to climate stress. And finally, if we can understand the archaeological record in this new way, we need to find new ways of sharing it. So I've worked a lot in Arnhem Land on this absolutely stunning rock art record up there. And one of the issues that we face in this area is that our traditional owner partners have many elders who aren't able to experience the rock art sites for themselves. Perhaps they're quite a stiff climb up the hill in some instances, and so we're developing new techniques to create immersive virtual environments so people can experience these remotely, but also these immersive virtual environments can be a new tool for understanding the archaeology. So one of my brilliant PhD students has reconstructed the entire landscape of the valley that we're working using drone data, and he's created essentially a video game where you can walk around in that environment 50,000 years ago and see what the landscape looked like, what the plants looked like, and understand the archaeological sites in new ways. Now, it sounds cool, but it sounds kind of trivial, but think about our landscape here. So 50,000 years ago, Gulf St. Vincent would have been empty. We would have been able to walk to Kangaroo Island, which sounds quite appealing, actually. Certainly better than catching the expensive ferry. And so if we're trying to understand the way that people that were living here then experienced this space, we need to understand the space itself. Otherwise, our archaeological interpretations will be really biased by our modern perspective. So finally, thanks very much to the people that support this work, but I want to finish on a local note. So Flinders has partnered with the new Glenthorne National Park, and we're doing all of this sort of really innovative research on the stunning archaeological record there, and we're training the next generation of archaeologists there as well. So hopefully there's a few junior archaeologists or not so junior archaeologists in the audience. I should say my mother-in-law, who might be watching online, just signed up to do a master's in archaeology. I shouldn't say how old she is, but she's older than me, let me put it that way. And so there's a place for you to come and enjoy the wonderful archaeology of South Australia as well. Thank you very much.